Continuing with the configuration of this catch basin prototype, I'm going to go down to my physical section. I'm going to skip down to my structure type. Right now it says circular, that's the default. This is actually going to be a box structure, and once I change that to a box, it's going to pull my length and width from what I input into my inlet catalog. The ground elevation is either going to come from, during placement, the terrain model that I place it against, or it's going to be typed in. So there's nothing to set up there. And I'm going to have my 2D surface elevation adjust to the grid to the rim. There's the other option. And then I'll have my set rim to ground elevation set to true. And so having that set to true is going to gray this property out, and then it's going to match whatever my ground elevation is. All right, moving down to the gutter type, this is a very important section to set up for your inlets, as it's going to directly impact your spread and gutter depth calculations. If I take a look at the drawing, it does not specify a certain type of curb and gutter to use, but you'll want to talk to your drainage team and see what is the most common gutter and curb type for each type of catch basin. So after discussing this, I found that this is going to be a type B curb and gutter. And having a gutter catalog defined for the purpose of the catch basins is very useful so that we do not have to do a user defined here. So if the gutter type changes per project, instead of needing to type all this information in, instead they just need to go into the gutter catalog and choose a different gutter type. And that's going to find all of these bottom properties. So we're setting the most commonly used gutter type here, and then per project it's important that the designer knows that they need to make sure that's the correct gutter and curb type. And lastly, I'll move down to the head loss method. So if we don't want any head loss, I could use absolute and 0, or if it had a default value, I could type that in. In this case, I'm going to be using the HEC 22 Energy 3rd edition. And then from here, I will need to specify a benching method. So that's going to look like this. I'm going to pick one of these benching configurations. So just referring back to the drawing, I think it's going to go with depressed. So that's what I'll choose for that option. And then from here, I'm going to create a copy of this prototype and then rename it as my next feature. Now from here, the majority of my settings are going to stay the same. You are going to review those to make sure, but I'm not going to do much with my design or my inlet location. And for these type B inlets, I'm going to be using the same curb information. So really the only thing I'm going to be changing as I create these additional type B inlet prototypes is going to be the inlet catalog. So just to be a little quicker, I'm going to start off by first creating all of my type B over here on my list, and then I'll go and quickly assign each inlet type. Right, so I've created prototypes for all of my type B inlets, and those are all going to be using a type B curb and gutter. So I just duplicated each one and then changed out the inlet type. And it's a good idea to go back through these and make sure they match and that you didn't select the wrong inlet type on any of these. Next, I'll start configuring the type C prototype. So to do this, I'm just going to duplicate one of my type Bs and rename it. And then over here, I'm just going to review my properties. So I want to make sure that I don't have a sump depth here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my drawing. You can see that I don't, so I'm going to leave that at 0. And then I am going to be changing this inlet type. Let me skip down here. Just want to make sure that all these settings are the same. So this is going to be a box structure, and I'm going to be using a type B curb and gutter still. And then for the benching method, I'm going to use depressed again. So for these type C inlets, the only thing I'm going to be changing is going to be the inlet type. So this is going to be a 3 by 4 foot type C. And then next I'll look at a type D. So I've already selected my inlet type. I'm going to take a look at my drawing, and I don't see a sump, and I also am going to use depressed for the benching method, and that's going to be a box structure.